a generally good way to do it. Next reason you could want to set up a defensive position enemy. And once again, that could be done pretty much the same way as an attrition can be done. That depends on what you want to prevent the enemy from doing. So I'm gonna just remove this map real quick. See if I can find something else. That's too early. Love Scribbler, but it has some annoying flaws sometimes. Okay, there we go. So on this map you see, and what we might want to do, we might you could imagine we have we're in fucking the Balkans in the 90s, and we're trying to prevent Serbian forces from entering Petrovka and exterminating the civilian populace. So our platoon is tasked with delaying the enemy while while another unit is extracting the locals in Petrovka. And that could be just be a delaying action. You might not be able to stop the enemy forces, but we might be able to delay them. And in this case, you imagine them coming from the west along the black track scene.
From where?
Western black track, right around here.
I see it, yeah.
That's the main enemy direction of advance, and their objective is to get into Petrovka and kill civilians. So when fighting a delaying action, you might not want to split up your forces as you saw in an attritioning action, because you want to effectively stop the enemy's advance, and you're not necessarily doing that with a squad. So in this particular case, you might want to put up your whole platoon in one defensive position, and then basically doing a backwards assault where you bound one squad back, then the second squad, third squad, fourth squad, covering each other. Scenario, I could put one squad up here, one squad exposed out here, not too good, but what hell. Second squad and third squad. This is an initial. This could be your initial ambush. So first off, the enemy is coming down this road. As they hit the tree line, you engage them at a short distance, and then when the enemy seems to be starting to win the firefight, as I'm sure you all know what it means, then you want to have your units fall back. And depending on terrain, that could be done in multiple ways, depending on how the enemy is acting. Whether the enemy is pushing right around you or left around you, or really just trying to push straight through you, and that gives you some different tactical considerations. We're not going to worry ourselves with those right now. I might be getting ahead of myself. Sorry for that. But yeah, you're fighting here just to delay him. Then once you've stopped his movement forward or slowed his movement forward, but he's starting to get to you now, and you won't be able to stay in this line and stop him, then you're basically just falling back one squad at a time. One squad, two squad, three squad, four squad, falling back. New defensive position in this tree line right here. And delaying the enemy again, preventing him from basically preventing him from crossing the next tree or crossing the next fence. Once he starts to push up, you can just fall back again. 1, 2, 3, 4, and keep doing that until you're in Petrovka, and hopefully the enemy, hopefully the civilians have escaped, and you will be able to either extract or get reinforcements or whatever the reason you were for you to stop the enemy was. Any questions about what delaying action means? Okay.
So the difference between delaying and attrition is, with attrition, if you're attriting the enemy, he may not be slowing down at all, but he's starting to sustain some casualties. And
yeah,
with delaying, you're not stopping him, you're not holding your ground, but you're making him move more slowly now.
exactly. Okay, so that's that seems pretty clear then. So yeah, attritioning, you don't necessarily have to stop him. Attritioning can actually, you can actually, if you think of modern day Afghanistan, what the Taliban does with every single ambush and IED strike they do, that's just attritioning. They're fighting to attrit NATO. They're not actually trying to stop us or delay us or anything. They're just trying to hurt us. So that's basic attritioning.
I've actually done that with the AI in Arma, where you'll set up on a good defensive position, even just by myself, fire at the AI, they take a few casualties, have a good escape route, and then move, and anticipating that they all come in on your position, move well away from it and behind it, and then when they come in on that position, you destroy a few more of them, and then fall back from that position.
Exactly, that's a good attritioning. So yeah, so obviously attritioning and delaying action can look very much alike, and they can actually be the same thing. Because whenever you attrit the enemy, you can easily end up delaying them just by the sheer amount of casualties they take, and them having to deal with those casualties in some way, even if it's just putting their bayonet in the ground, showing here's a dead guy, go pick him up at some point. They will have to deal with those casualties and their lack of vehicles or whatever. But with delaying action, you're really trying to force them into stopping and dealing with you, and then fall back, preventing them from dealing with you, and then as they advance towards the objective, they'll get engaged again and again until you have delayed them enough for whatever you're doing, whether it's waiting for reinforcements or if it's waiting for an extraction unit to arrive, or just buying time for friendlies to escape while you die delaying the enemy. There's a bunch of reasons you can do delay action. Okay. Next and most common thing, what you usually end up doing in these missions, is deny the enemy ground, and that's pretty much speaks for itself. It's just that's basically just saying what's called drawing a line in the sand. I'll see if I can find a good. Yeah, so it.
Oh, nothing.
It's not the best, but it'll do. Okay. So in this case, our objective is to just deny the enemy ground, and with this, and the company commander has decided you can do this in what's called a reverse slope defense. So you have the enemy, he's bad and evil, and he's coming down this direction here, and then you have your friendly lines. That is basically and this tree line here, and that's basically you saying no, when you're denying the enemy ground, that's saying no further than this tree line. If the enemy has to go through this tree line, he's basically gonna have to kill us all. That's when you're doing a denying operation. But in general, you shouldn't expect the enemy to kill you all and then do a deny operation, because then you basically then you're fucking up. If you expect the enemy to be able to kill you, then you should be doing delay or attritioning instead. So deny, that's only if you expect that if you hold this position right here, then you can then you will be able to defeat the enemy. The most common form of battle position in Arma, basically, because people are not really doesn't really seem to be aware of that you can just attrition or delay an enemy, and I've seen that multiple times in missions like Geoback Defense, where people just set up a battle position around the town, and then they don't move where the objective in Joe-back defense is actually to attrition the enemy and fall back. You're not supposed to kill them all. Sidetrack. So those are basic common terms of defense positions. Are there any questions? Okay, nice and easy. Okay, so now I'm gonna move into some of the some terms to use whenever you do stuff like this. First off, we're gonna talk about the two types of defensive position, and it's pretty basic, but it's something you want to think about in all cases, anyhow. First off, we have the two types of defensive position. We have a prepared and we have unprepared. The differences are pretty obvious. So I'm going to ask Tazel, what's one of the differences between a prepared and unprepared position?
When you're prepared, you know that the enemy is coming, and you have time to set up your units or squads to good positions. And unprepared is when you don't know that the enemy is near or is coming, and he's basically surprising you. Could it be?
Yeah, almost. Basically, a prepared position is a position that you have time to prepare. You can go, so you can easily move into any tree line and then say, okay, this is a battle position. It's not a prepared position. It's just we're going to be fighting from here. And that's an unprepared position. The advantages that you get from an unprepared position is that it's easy to establish and occupy, and it's fast. You can, whenever you move into an unprepared position, then you're basically ready. As soon as you got your squads lined up with arcs of fire, then you're basically ready in your battle position. Of course, you have the disadvantage that you only get what's called natural concealment and cover. So it should only be used in what's called a naturally suited position, like a tree line or a seawall or dike or something like that. A place that's natural cover. You can't just set up a unprepared position in the middle of a field and expect to survive, of course. So the other thing is a prepared position, and Soviet, can you give us some idea of how a prepared position has advantages over unprepared position?
An unprepared position is easy to establish and occupy in a prepared position advantage.
Why is that? Okay. Basically, think of it. If you get to a tree line and you're told you will not be letting the enemy pass this point at any cost, what would you do immediately? You have your squads lined up and with arcs of fire and all that stuff. But what would you want your squads to do after that?
Dig some shelters.
Yeah, man, dig some fucking shells. So you want to prepare your position. You want to dig in. You want to conceal your cover position. You want to conceal your entry points into your position. You want to make sure your guys are nice and cozy. They have tents to hide in, or foxholes to hide in, and some place to eat, and some place to shit, and all that shit. That's what you do in a prepared position. So you get the advantage that you will always have cover, basically just because you're dug in, and you will have concealment because you can put some grass. In real life, at least, you can put some grass on those trenches. You can knock a tree down over it, so it just looks like someone shot at the area and the tree is knocked down. You can put doors over the trenches, so if the enemy starts hitting with your artillery, you can put that door over the trench and hopefully not get as much fragment. There's a bajillion things you can do in a prepared position, and that's the major advantage of that. What's a major disadvantage to that, Bloodbane?
It takes a long time to make, and you have to stay in that place to like build all the fortifications.
Exactly. You're basically spending a lot of time just doing that, and not that much for concern in real life, but in Arma or in Arma, but in real life you end up exhausting your men depending on how much effort you want them to put into a defensive position. And in real life, they say a two-man standing fire trench with decent cover should take about 1 hour and 40 minutes to take. You could try doing that in Arma. But yeah, it's that's a consideration always. Do we have time to make this to make a prepared position, or do we have to go with an unprepared? Usually, people will end up going with an unprepared because they're simply not thinking, "Hey, I can like spend 5 minutes, dig some trenches, and have a real good position up."
You want to hear an interesting side note?
Yes.
A Roman legion, when it was marching, when it would stop for the night, would actually clear 2 acres and prepare a full palisade in about 2 hours.
Oh yeah, that's right.
That is quick.
Yeah, 6,000 men.
6,000 men. They'd build a whole fort in 2 hours for the night.
That's how we prepare a position. How we do it. And yeah, that's basically any real infantry unit still does that in a Cold War scenario. Basically, whenever you get a striker company moving out through a woodland area and they're in a Cold War scenario, you'd see them stop. Guys would get out and just start digging holes for sleeping in, and then they would actually sleep in those holes. Vehicle crews will man the 50 cal, and you have a couple of extra guys standing watching another hole, and you get like 4 hours of sleep in a night. And that's still how it's done in most modern armies. So. As I said in an earlier call, security is not optional, and preparing a defensive position whenever you are resting is not an option either. Just a quick side note. Yeah, a good side note there, Jimbo. Okay. The next thing we're going to be covering is terms we use in a defensive position, because again, just to get some things that you might already know, sort of. Get them down on paper and get some words on them, so you can use them in game and explain them to your squad leaders what you expect of them. The first off, whenever you get into a defensive position, make sure that your squad leaders tell their people where they are on a map, basically, or just explain what they're about to do. We're about to defend from this position. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. It's a major point in real life, not that much in Arma, unless you have one of those hardcore whacks where you don't get maps. Okay. Then what you actually want to do is provide fields of fire. Pretty hard to do in game, but if you can do it, it's worth the effort. A field of fire is obviously just basically an arc where you say just the squad should engage targets here, and I'm gonna put in put in some pretty pictures for you to look at in game. So this is me putting in a Danish infantry platoon. What each of these circles represent a squad facing up or north in this case. Then and a Danish platoon is only 3 squads. So in this case, you've lined up in a perfect line formation. And the first thing you want to give your people, of course, is arcs of fire. And arcs of fire is given by taking something in the terrain that's easily recognized, like a house or a tree line or a road or something like that, and saying left arc of fire and right arc of fire. That could pretty much make it easy for you. So in that case, you end up with a squad having, for instance, this line of arc of fire. What the fuck is this? Okay. So one squad's got this arc fire, then you give second squad an arc fire. You can give them. You can either give them the same right limit that you gave the first squad, or you can give them something else. But what's important is that their arcs of fires cross at some point, so the enemy won't be able to get between them unless they're getting so close that it doesn't really matter anymore. And then you have your third squad. You give them an arc of fire left and right. Now you have your whole sector covered equally, instead of what tends to happen in Arma is that you identify the main threat area. Oh fuck. You can identify like a main threat area that could be around. It would be around the middle. Then everyone just start pointing their guns at that, and what that does is the enemy can pretty easily outflank you without being seen, because all of your people basically have this arc of fire because they're just watching for this danger area. And I'm pretty sure you all have experienced that in game. So that's why you might want to give out arcs of fire. I know it can be a pain in the ass, but it can be worth the effort in game, I assure you. Okay, so once you've done that, just check. But this is why we want to go in game too, just so you can see what I'm talking about, because it might be a bit cryptic to do it in game or in Scribbler. Finally, if you have more than one platoon, you obviously rarely would have an armor, but if you have more platoons in the area, then you want to make sure that your fields of fire overlap with the other platoons. How would this work? There we go. Imagine you have a platoon on your left and right side, then you want to make sure that their arc of fire is consistent with your platoon, because if you check the red lines I'm putting down now, fuck, red line asset. There you go. These red lines here, that's your platoon's arc of fire. That's basically you saying, okay, I want the platoon to have this arc of fire from this arc of fire. Or the company CEO says, I want you to cover this section. And then he issues some arcs of fire for the platoon, and then you will issue for each squad what they should be watching out for. I hope that makes sense. And then you should make sure that your platoon is crisscrossing with other platoons, and you want to make sure that your squads are crisscrossing with other squads. Okay. That should be pretty straightforward. Any questions on that? Okay. Another reason for this is also to avoid having blind spots. You could imagine if there was a depression right in front of the middle squad, then you might want to put in. But the two other squads can see it. Then you can make an arc of fire like this, for instance, so that these two can prevent an enemy from coming up that depression unseen by the middle squad, and then you can have your middle squad take out what those two squads can handle farther out. You can basically give them priority of depth fire, or whatever. And you can basically play around with that as much as you like. Obviously, won't have too much time with that in game, but if you ever think about it and are able to apply it somehow, it can be worth the effort, because you can basically make a spot that people doesn't think of as defensible, very defensible, just by assigning arcs of fire and assigning responsibilities. Next thing, after you've given a arc of fire or fields of fire, then you want to give out a principal direction of fire. And basically, if you imagine that there's a road that you're stopping an enemy coming along a road, and this is the yellow road here, then you have a principal direction of fire, and that should be along the road. For instance, you say The one thing is that you have these arcs of fire, which your squads are watching. Make sure no one enters through them. But your heavy weapons have a priority target, and that could be the road. In this case, the principal direction of fire is the road here. So you have the machine gun from first squad. His principal direction of fire is there. Second squad shall have that too, and third squad. So if any important target like vehicles show up on that road, then the machine gunners and AT gunners know this is the principal direction of fire. So if any major threats appear in the principal direction of fire, we will engage that first, and then all other targets are secondary. You can assign individual principal directions of fire to squads, so you can say this is the platoon principal direction of fire, this is the major threat area. Make sense?
Oh yeah, that's good.
Okay, cool. Next thing is I couldn't really find a good translation for that, so I just went with my best shot. We call it the last line of fire, and that's if you're trying to lure in the enemy. You can imagine you're holed up in a nice prepared position. The enemy has no clue you're there, and you're basically just waiting for them to get so close that you can shoot all of them at the same time. Then you want to issue a last line of fire, and that's basically as close as the enemy gets before people are allowed to individually open fire. It's going to be extremely hard to do in game. It's actually pretty hard to do just with real soldiers, I find. But it's a good control measure, and it's an imaginary line. It's like if you imagine, just imagine a line going across here, and then you point it out like saying, okay. From going from the tree to that depression to that house, between those points there's a line. So you can like write this up. Why won't you work? Damn it.
I did this once in a game.
Well, it works because we see house, tree, and bush.
Yeah. So just imagine that you see an actual bush, an actual tree, and an actual house, and then visualize a real environment in front of you, and then you would kind of be able to visualize a line going between 3 points in that environment. And so basically, if the enemy gets closer than that imaginary line, that's when you open. That's when each individual soldier is cleared to open fire. Before that, they should wait for orders. But if they get within that line, they're cleared to open fire. And the line can be pretty close. It can be within 50 or 10 meters, depending on the conditions, of course. Or it can be pretty far out if you basically just don't want anything to get near you. Then you can put like 200 meters out. It depends on situation, but it's good for ambushes, and in general, if you're fighting from a defensive position and the enemy isn't aware of your exact location, then you actually want to wait for them to get pretty close before you engage, and that should be as a platoon, so the entire platoon can engage the enemy at the same time. Hope that made sense.
Oh, yeah. Don't shoot until you see the whites of their eyes.
Basically, yeah. And this is just this is a control measure. So you say you just designate a line on either on the map or say to people, don't fire unless they're within 100 meters or within the 50 meters. Then just tell your people don't engage at all until they're ordered to. If you can enforce that in game, you can actually do some pretty mean ambushes. And I wish I could get people to do stuff like that when we're playing 2 goalies on TVT or some shit like that. But people are fucking trigger happy. Okay. Next thing is you want to give your people